Welcome to the Asbestos Knowledge Empire.
What does asbestos management mean to you?
I used to really struggle with the asbestos management at my site, but now it's a breeze.
It used to be really expensive. I was paying loads, but now I've got my asbestos power team in place. It's so much easier.
Asbestos can be a pain in the arse if not handled right.
We had to stop the job because asbestos was discovered. Now we don't have that problem.
Asbestos management is easier than you think. Asbestos management. Be proactive, not reactive. Think about asbestos first, not last.
And now your hosts, best-selling authors and asbestos experts, Ian Stone and Neil Munro.
Welcome to the Asbestos Knowledge Empire. I'm Ian Stone.
I'm Neil Munro.
So today we're talking about what contractors should do when attending sites, or even before attending sites, really, isn't it?
Yeah, so contractors, what we mean by that is anyone kind of doing works, really, isn't it? So it might be a plumber, electrician, carpenter, general maintenance, through to, I don't know, painters and decorators.
Somebody who works in IT.
Yes, which often get forgotten about, don't they?
They always get forgotten about, and that's, I just thought of them then.
It's really anyone that's working on a building, potentially disturbing the building, doing their job.
So for plumbers and sparkies and electricians and chippers and stuff like that, it's all straightforward. You know what they're going to do. They're going to be going and tracing electrics, tracing pipe work, knocking holes in buildings, putting new pipes through, putting new electrical runs through, all that kind of thing. So that's obvious. The IT company one isn't as obvious. So I just want to explain that one. A lot of companies have external IT providers, and I don't know, you'll have a server in one location in the office, or the way that your internet feed is set up. You've got like the Cat5 cabling, the cables that you plug into your computer or go to your desktop, things like that. They all have to go through the building, and through upgrades or changes in system, changes to...
And another desk.
Yeah, exactly. Another desk, another phone, those kind of things. A lot of these things are all internet-based, and you need cables to actually get them there. I mean, our telephone system's a VoIP system, which is an internet-based system. So, yeah, essentially each unit has its own internet cable connected into it, exactly. And that's it. And you might think, well, they'll just go and...
pop a cable in.
Yeah, pop a cable in at the server, run it over the tiles and attach it up to your computer. However, in reality, when systems are first installed, they're normally maxed out to the kind of the size of trunking and things like that the cables run in. So you'll often find that where the original cabling goes through the wall, to get this one epoxy cable through, you'll actually have to drill a new hole and things like that. And that's just an off-the-cuff one that people don't often consider. But yeah, so what do contractors like that have to do? What should they do?
Well, in the best real world, they shouldn't be just rocking up.
No.
Blind to the asbestos information. Because if a job has been planned correctly, and this really does depend on what's happening, information should have been determined on what asbestos is there prior to them obviously coming to do the job.
And this isn't just asbestos, right? This is part of our duty of care for employees to make sure that we're sending them out to safe environments to work in, and we're sending them with everything that they need to do that job. So it's just general risk assessment, understanding it. It's clawing that information from the client site that they're going to. Do we need any special PPE, RPE? Are there anything that we need to be aware of?
Yeah, what are the hazards? What are the risks associated with carrying out these works? And top of the list is asbestos. So it shouldn't be a surprise to the people that are turning up. Oh, you've got asbestos. It's
like you need to think of it along the same lines of, I don't know, we're going to install some cabling outside to a building. Okay, right, well, the thought process should be, okay, fine, well, what's the height of the building? What access equipment do I need to get up to that safely? Is it a cherry picker, a scissor lift? Is it a fixed scaffold? Is it a tower? What vehicle movements are in and around that building? If there are vehicle movements, what are we going to do? Can we change the traffic management plan? Do we need a banksman there to help guide traffic around our temporary structure while we do this? It's those kind of things, but in with that whole job planning preparation is there any asbestos in that building?
Yeah.
Is there any asbestos on the wall panelling, let alone where I'm actually working? Is there any kind of in the vicinity? Do I need a survey to actually go and do this? Am I going to be disturbing the fabric of that building? Am I just laying cables in trunking, or am I actually putting up new trunking, going to be drilling and fixing into that, the fascia, the facade of the building, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways of looking at it. Let's talk about planned works first, because reactive works is a little bit different.
Yeah, definitely.
But planned works, if the person is rocking up to your site and they're asking you, have you got asbestos? That's an alarm bell already, because that should have been taken care of first, shouldn't it?
Well, if they rock up and they go, all right, I'm here to do a job, have you got any asbestos?
Yeah.
Well, what happens when you turn around and say, yes, I have got asbestos on site?
Exactly.
I don't know. I've seen it happen. They'll go, okay, well, I can do my bit anyway.
Yeah, or, we can't do that then. Or that's in the way. So that's already an alarm saying that that's not been looked at, that's not been assessed correctly for that contractor. Because if any planned work should have taken care of that element, like you said, it's reviewing what needs to be done, what are the risks, am I disturbing the building? Yes. What existing asbestos information have you got? Okay, we need to get more information to enable us to see if asbestos is present and going to be disturbed during whatever we're planning to do. So yeah, that is a big alarm really on that contractor.
And when you think about it, when you plan a job properly, that's what you want. That's what I want. If somebody's coming to do work for me, I want it planned properly, because if they're planning,
want it to run smoothly, don't you?
Well, exactly. You don't want it to run
hiccups,
smooth.
You don't want mistakes.
No, you don't want mistakes. You don't want hiccups. You don't want
Chances.
downtime. You don't want a chancer. You want to pay the right job for the right price for the right job. Because you don't want them turning up saying, "Oh, actually, I can't do this. I've got to go off and get some gear," and that all the while because. Well, it's not planned. When you think about what you're paying them to do, just literally the bare bones of what you're paying them to do, if they haven't planned everything properly, well, you can't have faith and trust in what they're actually doing, surely.
100% right, especially when you're talking about asbestos. If you've planned a job and you think it's going to be $5,000, but you haven't even looked at asbestos yet, that $5,000 job could turn into a $10,000, $50,000 job because of asbestos.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be committed into that job and find out it's turned from 5 to 50.
That's a really good point, right? Because
you're already in the job potentially.
If you're quoted $5,000 for a project, you say, yep, you sign it off. They order all the parts, all the equipment. It all gets delivered to site. They then rock up to do that installation, and they have to say, oh, sorry, didn't realise there was asbestos here. We can't do it. And then you get a survey done and you identify there's, like you say, 50 grand's worth of asbestos that needs sorting so that $5,000 investment can be put in place. Well, that's going to be a massive headache. Just trying, where do you find an extra 50 grand? Especially in this current climate, where do you find it in a project? And that's not unheard of. And something simple as changing a calorifier in a boiler room could be a $5,000 job.
Yeah.
By the time you've put in new pipe work, a new calorifier, all the rest of it, that's a reasonable price, right? However, that boiler room could be riddled with asbestos, and it's not unheard of that a boiler room costs £50,000 to deal with. So these are real world scenarios that can go wrong in a big way if projects aren't planned properly. Yeah. I mean, there's the old saying, isn't there? All the P's, prior planning prevents poor performance. And it does.
Are they the right ones?
They're the ones that I just thought of. There's another one, piss poor planning prevents poor performance.
That was what I was thinking of.
But it's true though, and that's why you need to consider it before work starts.
100%, particularly when we're talking about planned works.
Planned works, exactly.
Now, reactive.
Yep.
Reactive is a little bit different, isn't it? Because obviously you may get an emergency situation or just an emergency maintenance situation, which is not necessarily emergency, but you need something sorting quick. You haven't got time to have all the planning in place. For instance, you may have a leak in a pipe.
Yep.
You may have your power's gone, or a light's gone, etc. Could be something as simple as that.
Yep.
So what should the contractor do? And obviously, in a kind of reactive scenario, they're not going to have the foresight of planning the job.
No, not as such.
The kind of the planning needs to come with the actual assessment of the job.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if you call a contractor out, they'll probably just come to site with an idea of, okay, I need to fix a light or I need to fix a leak in a pipe.
Yeah.
So they'll have an idea of the kind of
what they've got to do and where it is.
What they've got to do, where it is. So first things first, when they turn up to your site, really the first things they should be asking, other than where is the job, is what are the hazards in that location?
Yes.
What do I need to know about before I go and have a look at this job?
Yeah, exactly. They should be looking at the asbestos register.
Yeah, and like you said, asbestos register should be top of the list. Because that is, particularly where we're talking about pipes, lights and ceiling voids. These are all hotspots for asbestos. So they should be asking for that information, and they should be refusing to start work until they've got some information on that. And then it's a case of reviewing that asbestos information to see if it's adequate to enable them to do the job. And I suppose it's then a conversation between them as the professional in fixing that element and you as the person responsible for the building to say, is the asbestos information adequate for them to commence works? Now,
and a lot of instances it won't be, right? Because you'll only have a management survey generally.
Yes.
And these repairs, it's sod's law. It's literally sod's law that the leaky pipe will be above a fixed ceiling that the asbestos survey hasn't gone into.
Yeah.
And it's sod's law. That'll happen.
Yes.
So in the grand scheme of things, then you need a refurb survey in that area because nobody's been into that void. We don't know what elements we're opening up into and what they're going to face.
Exactly. And this is the conversation that you need to have with that contractor to say, okay, what do you need? And what asbestos information, what locations do you need to actually fix this problem? Now, it might be the case of, well, if there's a leak here, I need to trace it back to this point. And it's gathering that information, isn't it? Because what you don't want to do is instruct asbestos information or asbestos survey, and it's not enough to cover the works that probably needs to be done.
Yeah, exactly, because the point of the problem, the source of the problem, might not be where the actual issue is seen. Like you say, it could be the fact that, well, we've got a leaky pipe here because the pressurisation of the system is wrong and it needs to be traced back to another joint in the pipework because that is where what actually needs replacing. A wrong joint was put on years ago and it's actually now blowing and it's affecting the pipe at another location. Yeah. I mean, water leaks, for instance, they are inherently just horrendous to fix. I've seen it God knows how many times. You look above a ceiling and you can see water dripping down. However, when you actually trace it back and where it is, it's coming in from the other end of the building. That's the saying, isn't it? It's like water finds its own path and the path of least resistance. And that's what happens. So you could have a water leak in one location, but it's actually coming from the other end of the building. And like you just said, I've had a look in the area where it's dripping. But to actually fix that problem, you've got to go back through the entire ceiling void to identify and to fix and to sort out. And having the asbestos information in that one location isn't good enough to do the work safely.
Yeah. And this also kind of highlights the fact of who are the contractors that you're selecting? Are they adequately trained with regards to asbestos? If they're, they should, as a minimum, have asbestos awareness training. Asbestos awareness training should give them enough information to kind of protect them from making asbestos mistakes.
Yeah.
They'll have an indication on what asbestos looks like, what are the procedures to kind of follow, and this one being don't start works until you've got enough asbestos information that you know that you're safe to then carry on and do your job.
I just want to go back to what you said. It's the minimum.
Yeah.
Right? But it's like That's not kind of, it's a want, hope and dream.
Yes.
It's the bare minimum to comply with the regulations.
Yes.
Contractors who can disturb the fabric of the building by following the regulations must have asbestos awareness training. They've got to have it, right? It's not just it's a nice thing to have. It's like they must have it.
Yeah.
So you should be checking that they've got it.
100%. That's what I was going to say. Part of your due diligence as a client, your client responsibility is to employ competent contractors to carry out their works.
Yeah.
And part of that competency check is making sure that they are compliant with this asbestos awareness training. Because, yes, okay, getting it wrong, they haven't got awareness training, that's on them. That's their employer's fault. But you employing them could create a greater problem on your site when something goes wrong.
Well, exactly. It's going to come back to bite you in the arse at the end of the day. And I mean, we've said it a million times on this podcast, and we say it to clients. It's like when asbestos goes wrong, it goes wrong in a big way. And it costs a lot of money.
Yeah, and if it goes wrong on your site, it's costing you. It's
costing you time, it's costing you money, which, well, especially in this current climate, we simply don't have. That's the thing. But so by checking that they are competent, that kind of then, it's a buffer, isn't it? It's a buffer that you're putting in place. If you're letting any Tom, Dick or Harry come and, no offence to any Tom, Dick or Harrys, but if you're letting any Tom, Dick or Harry come and work on your site without checking versus asking them to prove that they've got their asbestos awareness training, well, that's the first little buffer that you're putting in place to protect you, protect your workers, protect your reputation, protect your profit. Because, like I say, if it does go wrong, it's going to go wrong in a big way.
Yeah, definitely. So it's not just a simple kind of employer-contractor letting them crack on.
No, definitely not. I mean, there's different ways as well, just thinking about how asbestos registers can be accessed. And just going back to your point of emergency situations, like fires happen quite a lot in buildings, and the fire service will essentially, when they're called, they rock up to site, they'll ask you, whoever's on site, have you got an asbestos register? Now, you might have a paper copy in that building that's burning down in front of your eyes, and you don't know what asbestos is in there. Like, you know you've got asbestos, but you don't know where, all the rest of it, because it's not down to you, it's not your department, whatever. So what do you do in that situation? Well, you can't really direct them into a burning building and say, if you go into reception and you get the key from Pam's desk and go into the filing cabinet and it's in there.
It's not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen. So in an emergency situation like that, it's good to have a database that's accessible online. And again, so you can look at it from both ends of the scale, one from the planning project end of the scale. If you're employing competent contractors that you use on a regular basis, give them access to your online database, because it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to come to site to view the register and to start gathering this information about the project they're planning. They can actually access it online through the portal, have a look at the information and collate that as part of their plan of works. And again, in the emergency situation, this is when it really kind of comes into its own, because right there and then you can log on, you can access that information, you can give the information to the fire department and explain and give them the information that they need, because that'll change their kind of fire tackling plan on, well, do we need to hose the roof down more, because one, we know it's asbestos, and two, we know that when asbestos is in fires, it explodes, it delaminates, asbestos is spread over a vast area. However, if they can put a team on that roof to kind of keep that cool and try and douse the fire down, well, that limits that risk not only of the fire happening, but of the greater risk of asbestos being spread everywhere. So again, that's another way to look at how your data is used by people in emergency and non-emergency situations.
Yeah, 100%, because the database does take out the human element of having to give it to somebody and having to be available, particularly in emergency situations. You know, emergencies don't happen 9 to 5.
They never do. It's always middle of the night when you're on holiday. When it's the person that has the knowledge, it's in the middle of the night when they're on holiday, they're inaccessible, and it's kind of somebody else who hasn't got a clue. They've only just got hold of them. They're the ones that are kind of
picking up the pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
If you have got that kind of set accessibility for the online database and giving it, like you said, it's giving the information to the contractors. If you have got regular contractors, kind of bringing them in to the business, bringing them in to the asbestos management as well. We've helped quite a few clients actually train their contractors on the asbestos items that are present in their building. So it's beyond the asbestos awareness training. It's actually giving them on-site training and knowledge of the types of asbestos materials they've got present, the risks associated, the do's, the don'ts, and actually using them to report and, kind of give them information on the condition of asbestos as they're going about the buildings, particularly on big sites like hospitals, where, you've got multiple buildings, gigantic sites where you've got thousands of asbestos items. And if you bring the whole team, the whole maintenance team, external contractors into the asbestos management, it really does help. And, things get reported and get fixed. And it all helps to reduce the risk of people being exposed to asbestos.
It does. It really does bolster your position. And like I said earlier, it kind of reduces that risk of things going wrong and things costing time and money. And we don't want exposures, but we don't want additional time and additional money costs either. And that's the thing. So putting these things into place, making sure your contractors are on point with asbestos, making sure that they are taking it into consideration, further down the line, it will pay dividends.
100%.
Hope you enjoyed that one. Remember, asbestos first, not last.